Memo bi akwaba eba what is possibly going to be the last episode of the Agyapadie book. Said this is episode 7. Okay. The series no Abril. Say 1 week any. What you say? Obibeka say, okay, in the Agyapadie book no melodies we are what else? I have another interesting episode. Another interesting series I made after the Agyapadie expose no. I know they are very, very interesting than Agyapadie, and you know, you would want to wait for the announcement at the end of this video. But Enra, you drew the takeover of media so far. So we'll share for the very first time. Where your book be a buyer proud to President Akufo-Addo winning the second term. Okay. Book be a your friend Agyapadie book. It is alleged. Say a book be a encrophobia from Akyem Mafia for atro. One person will take you over Ghana. Mama Wati says officially there has been a response from Agyapadie. Waka se book we a propaganda book. But ye he emu nyama na esisi ana nyama omotro wo book ni mu say President Akufo-Addo the second term or mobeye. Ni ehu ne say indeed na propaganda and say nya propaganda. Inti no the last episode and ye drew. A recap of the whole thing, and it's the first one they talked about how to take control of the economic levers of the country. The second one they talked about how to take political control of the political parties, including MPP phobia womususu say womufri kufuor camp krano senia yebebo omuegu na yede President Akufo-Addo nkrofo. Even years after President Akufo-Addo wefu abemu krano na still wono and wobe control the MPP and Ghana as a whole. Okay, that plan we talked about how they wanted to take control of Ghana's resources, especially your gold, your fango, and all the other things. Plan a one year so one person will take control. How they wanted to take control of telecom sector, because someone who said telecom sector no susika wa hopang what you say. Now Endra ye shall share with how they wanted to take control of the media space. Send your moka say womo begu NDC media spaces no. Send your mosanso ka say omo ebema MPP form yesika for asha say omo bie eye radio station omo ka say no no de cheche ma won to minsa. Say omo bema MPP for sika for no ebie radio stations and all that what you say. Now we are talking about yesterday we also talked about some of the journalists that omo can say every single month ni eti omo 1 million Ghana cedis so that omo ebeba no ma ba be ye jandam ama a political party no. So the last side now, king kind no. They are specifically talking about Kwame Sefa-Kan and Paul Adomotri. Now, after Kwame Sefa-Kan and Paul Adomotri no, say ye be ready baby omokasa about Ghana's judiciary. Now judiciary hono. E hona assembly ni nejina. Inti yankin kan Kwame Sefa-Kan edie no. Now I say Kwame Sefa-Kan versus Paul Adomotri in the future. I say it is an undeniable fact that the two gentlemen have become institutions in their respective rights, especially within the media circles. They are undoubtedly part of the pool of great brands the party shall fall on as we move into the future. Into say Kwame Sefa-Kan and Paul Adomotri there, omo abomodin, omo abojuma wa Ghana pan, omo kasa Ghana 40 na MPP dache no, omo edibeji na Kwame Sefa-Kan and Paul Adomotri eso. Or say while Sefa-Kan appears relaxed and waiting for the right time, Paul seems apprehensive anytime Sefa-Kan is brought into the picture. Inti say or say even between Kwame Sefa-Kan and Paul Adomotri krano. Say omumienu no say omo secret meeting bi na Paul Adomotri kote say ye bo Kwame Sefa-Kan dian na Paul Adomotri ne krano ne buefu. As say Paul Adomotri krano so no krano shedan pe Kwame Sefa-Kan asemsa. Now I say at the level of presidency, there appears to be a groundswell of support for Kwame over Paul anytime communication issues arise. So, person try say, President Akufo-Addo ne hona kra no mo ni Akufo-Addo ye adwuma no. Omo bu Kwame Sefa-Kan esim Paul. Because Kwame Sefa-Kan asem ya ba omo support no esim to Paul Adomotri no ye dirty works ne kra no. And the president no person try say, ono kra no omo bu Sefa-Kan. Also, the kitchen cabinet of Nana feels that while Paul is equally known, he has credibility issues to deal with, especially on the conundrum surrounding his withdrawal from the Ghana Law School. So, Paul Adomotri in some one Ghana Law School in some ba ya withdraw in some bebre wo Paul. settling on him for the future could create credibility challenges for a ticket. In the next government, Nana will convince Sefakan to chair the NCA board. Inti okase President Akufo-Addo Nankobema Kwame Sefakan akwa chair the NCA board in the next government, and clearly this didn't happen. Now, what actually happened is Kwame Sefakan rather was part of the board chair of GMPC, not NCA. Okay, so he didn't get the NCA, but he was part of the GMPC board. Also, we believe that Paul is easily swayed by money, hence we cannot trust him for any sensitive position. So Omokra no munje po adomotri endi, because omuni se po adomotri there, baby asikawo enoko. So munje nindi. Also, Gabi has already agreed with Nana to move Paul from the NCA to the NMC, which he would be supported to chair. We believe that Paul, although may not be too excited about this prospect, he would gladly accept it as compensation for the work he has done, for the work he has been doing for us, especially on the Metro TV's Good Evening Ghana show. It was just say, Paul Adomotri Nanka Akufo-Addo second term no, omubeyi na National Communications Authority, the National Media Commission. Okay, no money say Paul Adomotri no, enya dia na ni beje ho nanso obeje ne saa because of say ye compensating ejuma awaye abo mo in the first term. Now, Paul Adomotri also didn't get the National Media Commission job, but rather got airports. And I don't know for you, but me, see a man airport, see a man national media, one can now befa. Intino for both Kwame Sefakan and when they book they can say appointments be more mono. They didn't specifically get that appointment, but they got someone who say better office, okay? Because GMPC, ni say kona kotina National Communications Authority, but so na kotina GMPC ya. Himfa na obekwa kotina. GMPC and the board members omutu kwanya per diem omoje $1,000. Hey, himfa na obekwa kotina. Ana yesi kotina National Media Commission. Ni example say kotina airport, kodane board chair ewo airport and himfa na obeti 90. Both of them no, o share book no appointment a book ne ka say obemo omo na omunya appointment omunya no for me bigger than what the book even said. Okay, hijacking of GBC. Also, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation remains the largest media entity in terms of resources and reach. This means that any regime that captures GBC will control the critical mass, especially in rural communities where the private media does not find economically viable to invest. Sadly, the GBC has largely tilted towards the NDC. Perhaps the duration of the NDC as the longest ruling party has ensured the majority of the GBC workers are anti-MPP. We have planned a 3-layer approach to capturing and controlling the state broadcaster for good. Firstly, the plan to revoke some of their TV channels will resume in 2021. We have had to backtrack due to the brouhaha surrounding the revocation of their 3 channels. It appears the time an election year was inappropriate. Kojo Oponkroma will execute this with finesse and make the channels available to our party business guys whose list is being compiled. A number of the GBC radio stations will be sold since they are not living up to the tax. Secondly, in our next government, we have to execute a massive agenda where most senior GBC staff will proceed on leave. Into GBC, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, the biggest corporation in Ghana ha. Oshe GTV, Obonu FM, any GTV Sports, Omunina no they under GBC. To address GBC no, esan say NDC atina aban mu Ghana acheninti. Most of ejuma efo GBC hono. Omo ye NDC for. Nti ade also mo ye ne say wo mo capture GBC. Na capture no wo mo capture no, omo use 3 systems. 3 systems, let's say 1 GBC, some of them radio stations and TV stations are under GBC no. You bet you lines is safe from onsem. Nyuma efoni bi omo wo ho mpenyimfo ni bi nso a mo tretre nkola na nyama no. Omo nso ye be yi omo efri ho. It was part of it. Na ye de omo stations na ya gije efri omo nsem no. Ye de ama MPP for. Inti indirectly no GBC stations no ebeba ba dane eye MPP stations. Into system and normal person they capture GBC no. I see others will also be transferred, but time and normal yes idea no na election year into I say a man December into na omoye process on person the capture GBC no election year in December and into ma omo twentwen so. Or say others will also be transferred to some very remote communities where life appears unbearable. Into GBC in Kokrafo and Impenyufo ni bi no Impenyufo no ye de ebi mo esan say GBC e wo radio stations ni TV stations wo nkrase inti no ye de ebi mo so be ko nkrase because nkrase ho no ye nim say abrabo enye easy. Or say the strategy is to get them resigned and their positions be filled with party loyalists. This way, we will not only have taken over the state broadcaster, but our plans to sell some of their frequencies will be met with a little on no hesitation. Thirdly, the last straw is to continue to ensure that the GBC is inflicted with inadequate budgetary allocations. That will justify the need to sell their frequencies. It will also make their leadership even more loyal, since they will have to continually keep mute to get bits of their budgetary releases from the finance ministry. It's also budgeting sensem. Those are the three ways. Now we are going to what I call the main meat of the Agyapadie book, which is the judiciary and governance in Ghana. I say, considering the competitive nature of our work as politicians, there's always a need to be a step ahead against our opponents to secure our interest, dominance, and maintain power in 2020 and the next 20 years. Inti plan a book ne fire and say, omo ye politicians. Inti politician de obeye abema wo wasem aye de na wo se wo ye. O se wo mutumi ye. No mo bo mo ho. No mo wini battle for the next 20 years. Inti MPP for no, based on sa Akyem Mafia bookie, they want to be in power for the next 20 years. 8 years in puni yesu. Let's say ni anga itiatu. I say our focus as a party has always been to position our members and sympathizers as strategic positions, both in government and in the judiciary, to cover and protect our interest. So I say omo de omo ni da so ade do omo ni so pan ene say omo de MPP for ene betenatena eye vital institutions ano. No mo san so the MPP for akwakotena judiciary so that asemba na MPP ni ho asemba na judge no edia ma MPP ni eyade do omo ni so de o kan no. Also, this has served us well over the period. All the appointments made to the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and some of the high courts in Ghana and our government was to promote the MPP agenda and to ensure our country never falls in the hands of the opposition NDC. So Tremu say, Ekufa the first term, or your appointments be of judges or do a big Supreme Court, or do a big Appeals Court, or do a big High Court. Na nini name no, eye NDC huntia. Say bema MPP4 asemaye de, inti MPP4 asemba ni ebuetia NDC. Also, citizens may exercise popular participation in the administration of justice through the institutions of public and customary tribunals and the jury and assessor systems. The judicial power of Ghana shall be vested in the judiciary accordingly. Neither the president nor parliament nor any organ or agency of the president or parliament shall have or be given final judicial power. To okasa about the judicial power constitutional edema judges no. Say asem ayedi judges no the final say. President going to mean can be. Parliament to mean can be. Judge and a 2 nation insa. It is a judge a 2 nation insa. See a judge no edani yenipa indirectly no 2 mina ba be she insa. Also, the recent decision to exclude the use of birth certificate to prove one's citizenship during the 2020 voter registration exercise is a clear example of the agenda to prevent so many people from registering for this year's election, especially in our opponent strongholds. So, Tremu says, that time, no, one of the most controversial decisions our Supreme Court making, you say, birth certificate into me interest away Ghana, no, or say, Anne. The entire omoma judges no masa ruling no. Allegedly, the entire omoma judges no masa ruling no. And they say NDC for a stronghold no. You better prevent you from registering for voters register because Yahoo say NDC for strongholds no. dodo na no a bed set and omo dey register. I say we had statistics to suggest the negative impact it would have had for us had we allowed it. All this was done to pave way for a resounding victory for the MPP and Nana in the 2020 elections. So omo tenase no mu hu ye sene America no statistics who say NDC for no omo strongholds ni na no baby a womo ko register ni na best set and crofo dey register and yes adia yen yi best set ni film ye yi film a NDC for bebre na no entumi nko register and then they be make for we win ye. I say it is important that we maintain the security we enjoy currently under the judicial systems. See ende senior judiciary no edi nsemo omo no ehun be hia say omo be keep ne saa na de bia no judiciary no edi nsem abo omo. I say it is imperative to observe that in recent times most elections in Africa have been fraught with post-elections legal challenges. Kenya, Ivory Coast, and Zimbabwe are few of these cases. As this becomes a norm, our own experience of 2013 should never happen again. We should never be in this situation, and the lessons should teach us a lot. Occasionally, it can be discovered that the courts have been instrumental in shaping the democracy in Ghana, and stakeholders are devoted operating within the legal framework governing elections, despite logistical, law enforcement, and judicial delivery challenges. We should, as lineage, be the winner in this. Also, Martin say in recent times, ebibi memu obi elusu elections or the court, obi elusu elections or the court. Now 2012 omunsu lusu elections the court ema omudi 4. Na saadie na omo ye nti also omo make sure say they will never be in that position. Say ye hu ne say na nsen ebibiman election bia no ekoko wiemu wo court there. And there at the end of the day, let us own the court. See ye only court na not to say ye winning elections. Basically that's what they are saying. Because at the end of the day, election bia ekoko wiemu ekoko piemu wo court. Say election bia ekoko piemu wo court there. And your court no, let me own them. If I own them, election no ko piemu wo me winning. I say we have to make sure that even in the unlikely event that the NDC win the 2020 elections, that they do not get the chance to appoint more judges to the Supreme Court. So also we making sure say NDC win krana, NDC and to me appointed judges and go Supreme Court. Our control over the judiciary is important for our protection, even if we were to lose the election. So more year judiciary no to the point say omo de omo nkrofo go to the point say NDC kraba still omo MPP they will be protected because that time no court no ebeyema court ni na beyema ni ebekwa ko hem no na MPP judges nko NDC ntumi nya he wo abemu na still they be ayedi asemotia. Also to prevent such unfortunate situations from occurring, we need to explore all legal avenues to protect our appointees within the judicial system and find out ways to prevent any new government from making further appointments within the next 10 years at least. So we make sure say we fele courts no, so that abambia will be babia in the next 10 years no unya kwan kran fa o judge say nye den emba. Also, we must also re-strategize our campaign. We need to find ways to get majority of Ghanaians to be on our side. The Agyapadie may initially create problems for us, but we would need good communicators, people with the legal brains to explain the issues to the general population that the deal is in the national interest. See, I was say one more re-strategize campaign na one more person one more and making sure say Ghana for be bring abeti omo ase. Agyapadie no ya ade bia de asembe ba. Na so yempe nkrofo a womo ano ate, omo ano aho a womo nim kasa. Nyen kasa momo. Nyama Ghana for nji omundi. Or say while only the judicial can exercise the judicial function, it is slow to resolve disputed facts and law and often strains to uphold executive authority. I say for instance, while the Constitution commands that the President appoints members of the Electoral Commission acting on the advice of the Council of State, the court has interpreted this requirement as if the President merely has to consult with the Council of State. In other case, the court has taken over 2 years and is yet to resolve a simple question of law of whether the president can appoint a person who is past the mandatory retirement age to hold a public office. It does not help matters that the president can appoint an unlimited number of judges to the Supreme Court. While the Nana has been in office for 3 years, he has appointed 9 judges, including 2 chief justices. Admittedly, many of these appointments are made to replace retiring judges, and there is no systematic evidence of a deliberate effort to undermine the judicial independence. So Tremu say Akufo-Addo first term kra no, we appointed 9 judges. We no kra wohwe mu a na judges no bebre na e retirement eno hu nti eno no ntumi mfa mbo Akufo-Addo say judges na wo ye no or appointed no e biasness. But the second term judges yi a wo appointed no eno na aba asem. I say never but that time na wo mo throw book no na Akufo-Addo the second term nyamba yo. Nti yen he the book ni kan. I say nevertheless, it feeds the perception that the president is sparking the court to gain influence over judicial decisions. To breathe air into the separation of power doctrine, there is a need to amend Article 108 to allow MPs to introduce private member bills. It is not an entrenched position of the Constitution and can be amended with a 2/3 majority. Fortunately, Speaker Professor Michael Quay has signaled that even in the absence of the constitutional amendment, Parliament can address this problem. It is expected that the ongoing process to revise the standing orders of Parliament will contain provisions to allow MPs to introduce non-finance bills. I say it is necessary to amend Article 78 to allow a president to choose majority of ministers outside Parliament and also to have a ceiling on the number of ministers required for running government. We also need to place a ceiling on the number of Supreme Court judges and to require all of them to hear all cases, especially those with constitutional ramifications. In the short term and in the absence of constitutional amendments, as was suggested as far back in 2003 by Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, there is a need to develop conventions to address some of these gaps rather than take actions that maintain the status quo or exacerbate the problem. In respect of Article 78, through a convention developed between the executive and legislature, a cap on number of ministers can be reached. Ideally, it can double the number required of a cabinet, excluding regional ministers. A similar convention can be adopted to provide for a ceiling on the number of Supreme Court judges to be appointed. Also, the 2020 elections will not be easy for us with current happenings. We need to sit up. Why are we so quiet on the Airbus scandal? Yes, we know we haven't found enough to indict Mahama, but a lot of Ghanaians were buying into our approach. Why have we stopped? It is time to go back to the drawing board. We must make sure we use the court system to help us damage the NDC beyond repair. Let us start prosecuting people. That is why we put our people there. Otherwise, we have a problem. In some way, they were talking about amending the constitution so that senior Mama Watias, you know, plan our have is a president Akufo-Addo ebe appointed judges. Or appointed judges we are. Ombe make sure the president for Frobia Bar on to me yes ejuma no. Into ombe amend a year constitution no, so that yebema president no a cap. Atiasie. Yebema president they say oh as a president biano. This number of judges, because currently no as it stands today no president no yemano say oh president may appointed this number of judges. Ebia as a president, number of judges will be to me appointed 10 pe. The emphasis added into president bia. So president bia ba will be to me appointed judges be person then or appointed. Into a moment ya mo appointment new year. Na yama parliament a pass samra no so that aban bia wo bebe bia no judges na wo ho no yemfa yensan kan mo. Aban nso into me appointed judges bia. Na ebeye still MPP Akufo-Addo ne judges na wa appointed no. Omo na still wo system ni mo ha. So omo wie no and omoko kasa about the Airbus scandal. Say Airbus strategy awo mo ye na ye adwuma. Di ntia sisi awo mo ayekom e wo ho. I say our attempts to take charge of the judiciary is a matter of necessity. Lest we forget that in Accra on June 30th, 1982, between the hours of 9 p.m. and 10:30 p.m., 4 peace-loving and illustrious Ghanaian citizens were abducted and carelessly murdered. The 4 were Miss Justice Cecilia Cranting Ado, Justices F.P. Sarkodie and K.A. Ejapon, and Major Sam Akwa, retired. 5 people, Joachim Amatekwe, then 32 years, Lance Corporal Samuel Kweku Amedeka, 27, Lance Corporal Michael Senya, 21, Johnny Jandu, 23, and Tony Tekpo, 24, were tried by a National Public Tribunal chaired by Mr. George Ajekum. We cannot acquiesce to the public quest for bygones be bygones mantra. It is important to understand that the origin still stays with our good friend and former foe, Mr. Rawlings. Ti omo tremu sanso be ma history. The entire was say womo ye no mu take control of the judiciary. Omo ye no ma history ka say ye na yen kai Rawlings time and omo kai Rawlings time. Senia judges ni bi ye kochi omo eku omo no. Na sa asem ne de still a was say Eda Rawlings eso. So that was the plan to take over the judiciary. Now, I'll say the international relations. I'll say our Russian allies have proven themselves with Operation Magazine. I'll say we couldn't have made it thus far with the aggressive nature of the opposition without this strategic document. By handing out Magazine to the MPP government, we would need to develop a much longer relationship with them, even if in the unlikely situation of the party ever going into opposition. However, COP Apietu will need to be handled. Having served as the eye of the Russian Federation in our republic, it is very imperative to redevelop relationship and try to avert his anger. His refusal to go become ambassador to the Ukraine signals that the Russians still trust him and will be unwilling to deal with the party in the long run without him. The implementation led by Samuel Uku, Lord Kome, Michael Opoku, and the rest will still have to be coordinated with Apietu in its fullest brute form to achieve a total annihilation of the NDC opposition and its leading elements. We need to properly assess the genuineness of Mr. Yevgeny Prigozhin. Say, Sir Prigozhin yi ena owu plane crash mono. So they were talking about they having a link with Russia. Okay? Having a link with Russia for and come boa more security wise and all that. Na ne bakwa mo boni din yes a Prigozhin ya say nanko woko anka opeso otu ye friends saying story by say nanko opeso otu Putin efri so no. Ono ena ase na MPP for no den ehhehye ho. And the plan was to annihilate NDC opposition, to eradicate NDC. Tinonkomu use more NDC for so no more to NDC for kra efri. He had disclosed in the last meeting in London that he was all for Nana and has had no dealings whatsoever with the former president and his party. He repeated this statement in Sochi at a dinner we had with the Egyptian president. It has, however, been difficult to double-check the statement from Mr. Apietu. Nti Prigozhin yi eno moka say MPP for no ekoko have a secret meeting bia all cast of no there was supporting Nana. Or say it is our duty to consider what is set out in the bigger Russian picture and pick and choose what will benefit the family. This is key because Ghana is ranked at level 3 and the magazine program only suffices up to end of 2020. It is instructive to look at the Moscow Grand Plan beyond 2020. The Russian development strategy, which covers the division of the African economy, is meant to contrast the interests of other states. Now, in the light of the above, Kwame and Kusi are to consult and carefully check the benefits of this arrangement as against that of the US to properly position the family and our tradition to be the winners of this political chess game by way of reference. It is that time na Russia for our strategy be and our more program ya maybe before. Or say America for so yes I had DNB. Na nini nemu no e was say ebusia omo ebusia no e na was say tenase ehwe no mo hwe enye de ebeboa Ghana but de ebebu ebusia no na omo take decision so that after 2020 so mo fi abemu kra na ebeboa omo ati ase nti no So that's the end of the book, the Agyapadie book. We are done with the book. Wow, it's been an interesting 1 week of going through this, in quotes, propaganda documents as stated by Gabriel Tredakon. You read the book, any baby no. Do you still think it was just mere propaganda? And I will believe you say, Enyama book no ekanye no, abim, it has come to play. What do you think? Muntre mwa your comment box nimo. Now I told you say by Miridiria, me wa another series I made by yes, you with the Agyapadie series. Now for the following weeks no, series I made by sisi a MPP for say omwe release performance tracker, right? No problem. Me Melodies no, I am also officially launching the MPP corruption tracker. MPP release the performance tracker. Me release the MPP corruption tracker. They're very simple. President Akufo-Addo are buying 8 years here wabasui. From the first year to the last year, no. Corruption cases be bresi ewa Ghana. Into what we are going to do is say, from the first time our bar buying no, we will take every single corrupt case and treat it and deal with it. Na Ghana for, because I na Ghana for a refi kakra wa yeso. From Akufo-Addo first year no, ebeye series. Into episode 1, ebeye the first corrupt case is here and the Akufo-Addo. We will dive into it and we will look at the outcome at the end of the day. Then they see it. Second episode, near call the second. Into no de oha ebeche because corrupt cases in the baby. Into no, I am officially launching the MPP corruption and a series, the MPP corruption tracker series. You would want to wait for that. And then they're very interesting. Into no, we are done with the Agyapadie book. Montre mwa your comment box ni mo. Medase.